This is Coffee, Country, and Cody.
It's true. We're home. The Acuff House. We finally made it to the big studio, the inaugural broadcast of Coffee, Country, and Cody with Eric Markham, Kelly Sutton. It's all hands on deck this morning. Charlie Mattos is missing out. I know he's on a Caribbean cruise, but he's missing out.
I know he's sad that he's missing out, too. He told me. He's really sad about it.
Jason Cooper, our engineer, who's been here all night long. I guess he was here when we got here. Martin Fisher, Annie Nye. Saw Joel Wilson and Jeff Roberts up. I can see them in the monitor. And that's all happening in master control upstairs. Used to be over at the Grand Ole Opry House. Well, no more. We're all in the same building in the shadow of the Grand Ole Opry House in Nashville, Tennessee. When you make your way up the Opry Plaza on a show night, which would be tomorrow night, I'll run that lineup in a little bit. I'll be there to host. Just look to your left, and there we are.
And upstairs, those technical directors, we've had them in a closet for about 5 years. They actually have a window looking at the Grand Ole Opry House now.
We let them out. That was really nice of us. They like their new space.
Yes, and our first day in the studio. First, we are a minute and a half into the television broadcast, and our director of security, Ron Grimes, shows up for the first time ever. I was like, wait a minute, someone need to know.
Are we good? Everything good? We're supposed to be here. I have a badge that says I'm okay.
I tried to make him get him to sit down and be a part of his Opry debut, WSM Opry debut, but he wouldn't do it. So
that's okay.
Kelly Sutton, what you working on? I know you got a lot to catch up on over the weekend. You were, as usual, you play the part of Betsy Ross every year in Nashville as you host the July 4th, 355,000 in attendance, Let Freedom Sing concert and fireworks show.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It was a massive amount of people. We had them all squished in downtown, and we were all loving on each other right about the time that the rain came in. So we did have a rain delay, but I'm going to run down how everything went downtown Nashville, including our newest addition to our fireworks show, which was pretty spectacular. So stay tuned for that. Also, Miranda Lambert finds a fan that has a lot more in common with her than she even knew, pulls her up on stage. That video is coming up. And the Brown family of 5. It is the cutest video. Stay tuned.
To see it. Yeah.
Oh, it's precious. When Kane and Caitlin Brown introduce their little girls to their brand new little brother crew. So all that and more coming up.
Opry tomorrow night, mentioning come to visit us and take a tour in the days ahead when the tours begin. You can find all about that at the tour desk, the kiosk, when you enter the Grand Ole Opry House. But it's Mandy Barnett, Chase Beckham, Henry Cho, Jackson Dean, who's an Opry Next Stage artist.
That's right.
Sidewalk Prophets are in tomorrow night. Matt Stell, Don Schlitz, Rhonda Vincent. There's your Tuesday night lineup.
More Coffee, Country, and Cody is on WSM.
And welcome our first ever in-studio guest, our new home, the Acuff House. But she knows a whole lot more about this place than either one of us put together.
Oh, I know.
It is on the Opry Plaza as you make your way up to the main entrance of the Grand Ole Opry House. And she's got new music, and it's just perfect timing. Coming up on 5,400 record-setting appearances at the Grand Ole Opry, which she added to over the weekend. Welcome, Jeannie Seely, back to Coffee, Country, and Cody.
Thank you so very much. Yay! I'm so thrilled. Thank you for allowing me to be the first. I'm kind of like Jan Howard said years ago. She said, I want to make history before I am history.
There's no one we would want to be here more. We are
Thank
so,
you.
and happy birthday.
Thank you.
You
Yeah.
just celebrated.
I'm still celebrating.
Good.
You know.
July 6th?
July 6th, yeah. So I was on the Opry for my birthday.
I saw your pictures. Your dressing room looked like a florist.
I know. I had to check my pulse. In fact, Billy Ray Cyrus was there, and we posed for a picture, and he was holding my hand, and he said, afterward, I could feel your heartbeat in your hand. I said, that's great. I'm 84. I wondered if it was still there.
If anybody got your heart raising, it was Billy Ray.
Yeah, these flowers could be for something else.
Yeah, I mean, who gets Billy Ray Cyrus to check their heart rate? Me.
Thank you, Dr. Cyrus.
Yeah. Oh, me.
Well, a song that you have done recently on the Opry has a great backstory, and we're going to feature that for people listening all over the world on WSM Radio and those watching all over the world on Circle Country. this morning. Tell us about Suffer Time, and that's with 2 F's as you listen to us this morning.
Right. I think Dottie West and Bill West wrote the song. I'm sure it was a play off of the old Jimmy Davis, Come Home at Supper Time. And she changed it to Suffer Time. Go to that same little cafe where they used to meet. I have always loved the song. And the funny thing about it, I was looking for a new country ballad that I could pull down to the country blues that I love so much. I was actually looking for a song that I wrote that Dottie recorded years ago. And I found it on her album called Suffer Time. I thought, wait, I like her song better, But this song just is very special to me. It has that same special feel to it that Funny How Time Slips Away has to me. It's just that it touches me, and hope that it does other people too.
Well, tell people about the special place you recorded it.
Oh my goodness, yeah. This was Ron Harmon's idea when I tried this song on the Opry to see what the audience reaction was, and it was so good. And I said, Ron, I think I want to go in and record this. And he said, what would you think about doing Studio B, RCA Studio B, historic, Actually, that's where I recorded my very first professional session ever.
I wondered where it would have been for you on Music Row.
Yeah, I was still living in California. I was in L.A., and I'd signed with Challenge Records, so it was the old DJ convention back then, 64. So they flew me back to record. The odd thing about it was we were all excited because Studio A was brand new. So we were going to get to record in the brand new state-of-the-art theater studio. So anyway, we get back here, and what had happened, they did a test session, and something was wrong, and they said, no, move all the sessions, because we don't want anything coming out of Studio A unless it's perfect. Yeah. So they had moved us over to Studio B. I never even knew it. Of course, I was I'm in Nashville recording. I had no idea where I was.
Was that Don't Touch Me?
No, this was a record on Challenge, and I'll have to think of it now. But anyway, how we discovered it was Studio B, I gave Ron a bunch of pictures and had marked on there my first session. And he said, Jeannie, if this was your first session, this was Studio B because of the baffles that were up there.
Oh, wow.
How cool.
No other studio had them.
Oh, my gosh. That's so...
If it wasn't for Ron Harmon, I not only wouldn't know where I'm going, I wouldn't know where I've been.
You said you got a team now, and that's really exciting.
I'm so proud to be a part of Absolute Publicity with Don Murray Grubbs, Bev Moser with Be Noticed I've been with for years, and Bev's kind of handling more personal management because I have too many ideas for me alone to do. And Ron Harmon does all the social media for me.
Look at you. This is amazing.
At 84, it's just crazy. I am so, so blessed. I really am.
What was your relationship like with Dottie?
Oh, my goodness. Dottie West was what we used to call each other those 3 o'clock in the morning friends.
Oh,
You just have a few that you can call at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they'll still be, at least pretend to be happy to hear from you. But a lot of times, when she would be on the road and finished with everything and just needed someone to talk to. So we saw each other through some rough times. She was there when I had my car accident in 77. Dottie was there at the hospital room with me, almost around the clock. Wow. And one of the sad things to me was that I could not be with her and help her when it happened to her.
And not too far from where we sit this morning.
Right.
Here in the Opryland area. That's Jeannie Seely, and one of those 3 o'clock in the morning phone calls probably was the very idea behind Suffer Time for her, too, I got to believe,
I would imagine so.
More coffee, country, and Cody is on WSM.
The inaugural broadcast, though we were in the museum for a few days, the interactive museum that's a part of the Acuff House now. It's our first day in the big room.
I know.
Our permanent home in the Acuff House on the Opry Plaza. Kelly Sutton, Bill Cody. There's Eric Markham. He's in for Charlie Mattos. And Jeannie Seely, our first ever guest in our new home.
Thank
Hello.
you. For
Welcome.
inviting me.
What were you just telling us off the air?
Well, the press release goes out tomorrow morning on my new single. And Don Murray Grubbs asked me, he said, does it bother you to talk about your age? And I said, not at all. I don't brag about it, but it's reality. And I know when I say it, how blessed I am to be able to still be able physically to do it and to be welcome to do it. I appreciate that. But anyway, he said, I think that is astounding and it should be mentioned. So that's whatever you say. So the headline on my press release says, at 84, Jeannie Seely is the oldest actively working female artist in country music.
That's
Is that
incredible.
crazy?
Yeah.
So we were.
So you and Willie are 6-7 years apart in age, and
Yeah.
didn't you tour with him?
I did. Of course, I've known Willie since 1964. I met him in the studio in L.A. When he was doing his first album, and then I wrote. And then I rented him office space. I was working at Liberty Imperial Records at the time, and that was one of my jobs. So he was coming out to open a West Coast publishing company. And so I rented him Opry office space. Opry on the brain. But then I got to open for him on fair dates, and I think the seasons were 81 and 82.
You wore a satin tour jacket or something one night that you still have from that tour, if I recall.
I do.
Oh, how
I
cool.
still have it.
How do you catalog all the things that you still, do you get rid of stuff? Can I come to your closet? Because I know every time you show up, I'm like, I love those shoes and look at that jacket. And you're like, oh, this is from, and
Yeah.
how do you keep track of all of it?
Well, actually, I had told Ron Harmon I was going to will him all of my memorabilia. And then after the flood, actually a little before the flood in 2010, I said, you know what, I'm not going to make you wait till I'm gone. Here, I live in a one-bedroom cottage overlooking the river. All of my walls are glass. I want to see that river, everything around me. So I have given everything to Ron. And if I want something, Ron knows exactly where it is. If I had it, I wouldn't have a clue where it is.
So he's a good librarian, in other words.
Yeah, funny thing, a couple of nights ago, he brought over this beautiful green sequin dress. And he was going to put it, I said, what are you doing with that? And he said, well, I was going to put it in this exhibit up in Pennsylvania that wants him. And I'm like, wait a minute. I tried it on. I can still wear it. So, baby, you look out. I'm going to be showing up one of these nights.
I love.
That was from either the late 70s, probably early 80s.
Please share the story. We were talking about this before you got here this morning, but because Ron Harmon figures prominently in this story about an unfinished song that you got to Steve Wariner, and
Right.
Give us that.
Yeah, Ron also has some of Dottie's memorabilia because Shelley did the same thing I did. She shared what she had with Ron, so she'd know where it is. But he found a journal where she had started writing some songs, and it was I'd Just Go On Living, if you could call it that.
Yeah, which you do frequently at the Opry.
Yeah, and I recorded it for the Curb album, an American classic, that's called. Yeah, and he took it to Steve Wariner and Bobby Tomberlin.
Yeah, that was
to
the other writer. I
finish.
knew there were
Yeah.
two.
because, of course, Bobby's such a great writer, and Steve knowing Dottie so well from traveling. By the way, Steve is producer on this. We did a whole little documentary at Studio B along with this session that we are donating to the Country Music Foundation just for the archives, just for history's sake, you know. But Steve Warner, so, you know, involved with Dottie and Chet and RCA Studio B. So, and my Opry brother, it was so great to have him in there too. But anyway, yeah, that's the story on that. And I truly feel like the guys finished that song like Dottie would have. That feeling is still there, knowing how she said things. And I think Steve's involvement, he knew that too. He knew how she would say things. So
Didn't he live on her couch for a really long time? And she finally said, son, I think it's time to get your own place.
Mary Gatlin tells this story of being at Dottie's, and it would be like Chris Christopherson would be on the couch.
Right.
Mickey Newberry would be on the floor. You know, it's just
anybody that wanted to play.
Hall of Fame cast of characters who were a long way away from the Hall of Fame
Right.
at that point in their careers and in their lives.
well, that was true of my farmhouse too. You know, it was like the Songwriters Hall of Fame was there. You know, I kind of claimed the entire upstairs of my farmhouse. I never knew who was downstairs. You know, but it was like, get up. Whose boots are those? That looks like Dean Dillon. What's that body over? So. Great.
Well, speaking of historical places, because we are now in our new studio, which was Mr. Roy's house, do you have memories of coming over and seeing him? Were you in here very often?
I really didn't come by here that much. I mostly visited with him at the Opry House and spent a lot of time in his dressing room. One of the reasons was coming into the park and everything. I just didn't, but yeah, I have such treasured memories of him. One of my favorite pictures, and I think it's on display at the Willie Nelson Museum. On my 25th Opry anniversary, I had a big piece of cake, and I took it into his dressing room. And as I gave it to him, he got my hand and kissed my hand. Aww. And so that's just one of my favorites. A fun story about Acuff, you know, the whole deal about me and my short skirts. And they used to say, you know, Mr. Acuff really doesn't like your short skirts. I'm like, that's unusual, you know, because he sure pays attention. But it would be funny. I could always tell when Mr. Acuff had a little drink, because I could do a song and he'd say, getting a little rock and roll for the Grand Ole Opry, aren't you, Miss Jeannie? Kind of watch that. I'm like, yes, Mr. Acuff. I could do the same song and he'd say, honey, you had them coming out of their seats. That's the way to do it. You got to entertain those folks.
Little
goodness.
nip.
Well, we're going to get to your Opry sister here in just a little bit, Lori Morgan from the stage of the Grand Ole Opry, doing When You Say Nothing at All as a part of the Keith Whitley tribute night that people got to see and hear on WSM and Circle. But we're going to close with So Far, So Good. Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys. I wrote a little piece for you when this came out and made it my pick of the week. And I said, he would be so proud of this music still being alive and being heard, and
could
you're
I tell
paying
you
it
a
forward.
real quick story?
Sure,
I
absolutely.
was in the dressing room sharing a little sip out of a bottle of bourbon when Bob Wills was at the Opry at the Ryman.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
We had Jeannie Seely, who was our first ever guest. She just left and finished the hour with us. First ever guest in the Acuff House, our new studio home. And the line that didn't make it on the air was when Kelly Sutton asked where Mr. Acuff's bedroom was in the house. And she said, Kelly, I was never in Mr. Acuff's bedroom.
It was one of those, as soon as it came out of my mouth, I went, I set her up so perfectly
She
for
delivered.
that.
She delivered.
And she knocked it out of the park. I was like, that was just a softball for Jeannie. I just meant like the footprint of this, what it was like. But she saw it and took her opportunity. I
we do know that at one time when it was Office Space, that
Yes.
Dan Rogers, the executive